it's my favorite time. Time for your questions. So what questions do you have? Yeah.
My question is around communication skills, and one of the things that you mentioned is that when you're interviewing, don't be slow, be fluent.
Yes.
And I have a tendency to pause when I talk.
Yep.
So is there any suggestion on how do you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question is, yeah, it's really important to be fluent, but sometimes I talk in a halting way. The secret is you take all of your halts and move them to the front. So if someone asks you a question, you say, that's a good question, you pause, it gives you time to formulate an answer, and then you have a fluent answer. That pause, that pregnant pause at the beginning of speaking is incredibly important because that person will like actually slow down, they'll lean in, and they'll think you're thinking deeply about that problem, and then you give your answer. So I would practice putting your pauses at the beginning. So don't immediately have an answer if you don't have an answer. Take a moment, formulate an answer, and then go through with the answer. And then the other thing is, and this is one thing that I always make my students do and they hate me for this, videotape yourself doing the answer. So grab a friend, have them read a question, videotape yourself doing the answers, and then watch the videotape a couple times. If you do that, you'll start noticing different patterns that are not what you think you're kind of communicating. So yeah, definitely put the pause at the beginning, and then videotape analysis is the way to go.
Thank you.
Cool. Other questions? Yeah.
So you know how earlier you kind of touched upon like exploring specific areas where lack of experience is not really a concern.
Yep.
Have you had any experiences with like areas that you feel might be the case?
Definitely. So right now, I think reinforcement learning is kind of like the next big trend. So I'm actually developing reinforcement learning. I learn best by teaching, so I'm actually teaching a class in reinforcement learning. So that's forcing me to study. So I study on my own naturally, but if I know that I'm teaching a course, then I have to get really good at it. And so I'm forcing myself to get better at reinforcement learning by teaching a course in reinforcement learning. So that's one thing I would do. The other thing I have my eye on is quantum computing. I think the big revolution is going to happen in data science, especially around optimization with quantum computing. You in the South Bay are at a hub of quantum computing. There's a couple hubs of quantum computing in the world. Here is a great hub of quantum computing. So while I was like kind of learning about that, I actually went to Hacker Dojo in Mountain View that was hosting a quantum computing meetup. And so that's a great way of doing it too, because it is a social learning environment. And so they read a paper, and so I just like committed myself to presenting about a paper. And so in that case, I said to these people, I'm going to present about the paper. Next week I came and presented about the paper, which forced me to like better understand that paper because I didn't want to look, like I didn't read the paper, understand it in front of these people. So it's a trick though. You have to like think about where the puck is going and kind of skate towards that. And it's not always clear. Like I've made bad guesses in my past about like what I thought was going to be really important. So in the past I thought optimization was going to be really important. So I went on this whole optimization jag about learning about all these Russian people that were optimization experts. Turns out optimization actually isn't that important. So that was kind of a way I went the wrong direction. But you have to kind of try out different things to see what happens. Yeah.
What advice would you give for people who are coming completely from a non-tech background and wanting to switch into data science? Would you say online learning platforms are a good way to go, or do you think a boot camp or like a master's program through a university is a way to go? Because I don't see that many positions for opening level. Generally the positions are like data scientists, and they generally say 2 to 5 years of experience. And there's very few positions like junior data analyst where you can, sell yourself. So what advice would you give?
Yeah, so there's 2 questions in there. I kind of want to answer them separately. The first question is, hey, where are all the junior data scientist positions? I would say yes, that's also true, that there's a lack of that. That has to do with this whole like credential inflation. There's also job title inflation, that a lot of people become senior data scientists very, very quickly, and there's not really anything called a junior data scientist, so it just makes entry into the marketplace very, very quick, very, very difficult. I would have 2 strategies. One is I would look for data science intern. So I would even look for summer internships. Usually the summer internships should be affiliated with a formal university program tech companies are notoriously informal. So if you find the person that's in charge of that internship, you say, listen, I match the skills, but I'm not currently enrolled. Could you make an exception for me to enter your summer internship position? You could leverage the informality of technology companies. That might help you with that. The second thing I would do is I would start thinking about things that are like a little adjacent. So like adjacent positions that are like positions where being technical is a bonus but not a requirement.
Right.
And the two off the top of my head are designers.
Okay.
So designers, if you have any background that's design related, designers don't have to be technical, but if they are technical, people really find them in demand. The other one is product or project managers. Those people generally are on the less end of the technical spectrum, but the more technical they are, they can create unique projects and do unique things, and so they're highly valued because they're relatively unique. So I would think about some way of creating a bridge to where I want to go, as opposed to just jumping where I wanted to go. For me, I created a kind of a bridge through a series of projects that I was actually working at a university. So as I was working at a university, I volunteered for more software engineering projects to increase my programming abilities. I realized my programming was bad, so I got better by volunteering for certain projects within my current organization. And then as far as learning goes, that's kind of like what I really am passionate about. I think different people learn differently. I think if you are extremely flexible and extremely motivated, it doesn't matter how you can learn. You can just get books from the library and just learn them that way. I think there's better and worse ways to learn, but it's really up to you and how you learn. My experience is that most people learn better in a social context, so that's why I don't think online learning is very successful, because it lacks the social component. I think in-person places like informal meetups are very good, boot camps, university programs, because they have the social element of learning from your peers, presenting in front of your peers are really, really important. The second thing, I'm a big fan of learning through doing, so you have to be active in your learning. Today was kind of an exception, because it was kind of like we were hanging out in the evening and I'm just kind of giving you a bunch of information. But when I teach a workshop, 50% of the time when I teach a workshop, I have the students doing activities, because I want the students to learn through that. That's another way that online platforms fall down, is that they don't do a lot, and what you do is low quality. Whereas in-person, say boot camps or university programs should be focused on high quality student activities with feedback, and that's how you would learn best, in my opinion. So I would gravitate as much as possible in that direction of generating answers and getting feedback on those answers. And it's hard to do through technology currently. Okay, let's do one more question, and then we'll move towards the end. I'll do two more. I saw both hands. Okay, yeah.
Me first?
Yeah, you first. And then you finish.
Do you have any recommendation for, well, I guess you did it yourself, for transitioning from academia to industry?
Yeah, so it depends on what part of academia you're coming from. What part of academia are you coming from?
Well, I worked as a statistician in a research related position.
Yeah, so what I would think about is looking for research-oriented statistician positions at technology companies. So there's a huge biotech field, so if you happen to be fluent in biotech statisticians, they're oftentimes in demand for those type of things. They might not be the pure type of problems that you're used to, so you have to learn about the domain and how to deliver within a domain, but that's the direction that I would want to go. And then I would think about, again, de-risking myself. So what would be the part of my portfolio that is the most risky? For me personally, it was my background coming from psychology, which is perceived as not very rigorous. So I wanted to show that I can do rigorous mathematical modeling. The second thing is that my programming skills weren't very good, so I made a conscious effort to transition towards becoming a better programmer. And so so I would just think about that. So you have to be very clear about where your unique parts are. And again, I always think about bridges. So I want to say what is the step-by-step process I can get somewhere, as opposed to just jumping somewhere. And I'm happy to chat afterwards too. And then the question in the back.
How much statistics and A testing do we need to know in what kind of projects, how they are used for?
In particular with statistics?
No, that's why
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know how much statistics.
Yeah, so the way that I think, I kind of have what Nassim Taleb's a famous thinker. He has this thing called a barbell method. And the barbell method means that things are sometimes lumpy, like the ends of a barbell. And that's how I think about statistics, is that you have to have the foundation to do probabilistic thinking. So a lot of times software engineers don't think probabilistic about stuff, and so you have to develop an intuition about probability and statistics and be able to be fluent in the basics of it. That will get you most of the way, and then up until you want to do something very, very hard, you have to go to the other end and get very, very deep in statistics. So that's kind of the answer I would have, is I would make sure that I'm very, very broad and understand statistics, and then be very good at one specific type of statistics, if possible, or not. And then just admit and say, hey, I'm not great at statistics, and I'm not going to go for a statistics-oriented position. So I would either commit towards being very, very good at statistics, or just not bother with learning it, because there's not enough time. Yeah?
Do you recommend any specific certifications for data science?
I would say no. That question also came up, and I kind of punted on that because I just thought it wasn't that important. Because like data science is great because there is no definition of data science. There's no clear certificate for that, and so I like data science for that because it is kind of just like this thing that we're trying to figure out and emerge. And so there are no certificates, and so I wouldn't worry about that.